One does not simply visit Dresden, one becomes a part of its art and history. The German novelist Theodor Fontane, in his travel writings, expressed his admiration for Dresden, the destination of this episode.
Cities of Utopia.
Dresden, nestled along the banks of the Elbe River in the eastern part of Germany, is a city that seamlessly weaves together a rich tapestry of history, culture, and architectural splendor. Known as the Florence on the Elbe, Dresden boasts a breathtaking skyline, with spectacular buildings that have been restored to their former glory after the devastation of World War II. The city's cultural heritage shines through its world-class museums, housing priceless art collections that captivate visitors from around the globe. Dresden's enchanting old town exudes a charm that transports visitors back in time, while the innovative spirit of its modern quarters underscores its forward-thinking nature. With a blend of tradition and innovation, Dresden offers a captivating experience, inviting exploration of its architectural wonders, cultural treasures, and a vibrant contemporary scene that collectively define its unique identity. Joining us today on the next stop of our journey across the cities of Utopia, we have Alexander Kästner and Kirsten Vincenz from the Dresden University of Technology. Alexander Kästner is the academic coordinator of the Institute of History at TUD, here to explore the deep bond between Dresden and science.
Dresden is the place to do science, or so would Electress Anna and Elector August of Saxony have said in the 16th century. Both were what historians have called prince practitioners, sharing a deep desire to increase the country's prosperity through peaceful business and the advancement of knowledge, with their interests spanning from arts and culture to maths and natural sciences, and also alchemy. For instance, in 1576, August was the first German prince who ordered daily observations of the weather to be recorded. His private book collection forms a core part of the historical collections of the SLUB, the Saxon State and University Library. Overall, the 16th century witnessed a great development boost for the city of Dresden, and Dresden still is and will be the place to do science. The city of Dresden is defined by both a rich heritage of cultural and academic institutions, and a broad network of research facilities. Here, TU Dresden is not simply an ivory tower, but an essential part of a vibrant academic community across disciplines and even borders. As such, the EUTOPIA network mirrors the very idea of our daily work, bringing people and institutions together to create knowledge and help to build a better world.
And now, let's take a short tour through the city's 800 years of history.
One of the first things you might notice when taking either a bus ride from the airport or a walk from the central station to the university is a great variety of quarters shaped differently in lifestyle and architecture. Even though most parts of the inner city were destroyed in 1945, the first impression today might subvert expectations in a rather positive way. Huge efforts have been successfully made since the 1990s to reconstruct the old heart of the city alongside other large parts which remained undestroyed in 1945. About 550,000 people are living in Dresden today, a number that had been reached twice before in the city's history, since larger suburbs and independent urban communities around the city along the Elbe River and the slopes of the Elbe Valley were integrated before the First World War, such as Striesen, Plasewitz and Loschwitz, quarters which are characterized by 19th century villas, green front gardens, airy streets and a high standard of living. The Elbe River divides the city in two halves. Bridges and ferries reconnect them. The river's name stems from the Latin word albis, referring to what was once a bright place. I would highly recommend a long walk alongside the riverbanks beyond the old town to explore a unique combination of nature and urbanity, of business and silence. The Blue Wonder Bridge is a must-see, as are the three castles on the right bank of the river. The second one is called Lingnerschloss. Did you know that Dresden industrialist and inventor Karl August Lingner not only created the Odol mouthwash to prevent bacterial infections, but also initiated the first World Hygiene Exhibition in Dresden and the foundation of the Hygiene Museum, which among others is another cornerstone of Dresden's academic and cultural life. On the right bank of the river, there is today's New Town, which essentially was the oldest part of Dresden, going by the name of Alten Dresden and being a city on its own right since 1403, it burned down in a massive fire in 1685. Its planned for reconstruction to include the Main Street Boulevard with its old linden trees took several decades. Since the 1730s, the former Old Dresden was called the New Town, near Dresden. Its inner and outer parts are home to the Saxon State Archive, museums like the Japanese Palais with its exhibitions of natural collections, or the Kraszewski Museum, which links Dresden to a shared Polish, Lithuanian, Saxon past, cozy galleries, shops, bars and restaurants. The Old Market Hall marks the place of Dresden's first medical school, founded in 1748 as the so-called Collegium Medico-Chirurgicum. This institute was the forerunner of today's University Hospital and a faculty of medicine. Back then, this part of the city was a military district, which was relocated north of the New Town during the 1890s, with the Alaun Park as a place for military parades. Some military buildings that were newly built back then are now hosting the Military History Museum, the City Archive, and cultural institutions, among others. Moreover, the New Town is renowned for its vivid student lifestyle and culture since decades. There are also some hidden treasures, like the old Jewish cemetery, which was established in 1751 and survived even the darkest times of German history between 1933 and 1945, ironically right next to the Luther Church and the Luther Square. Not far away, the old Leipzig train station also refers to these times, for in 1938 the deportation of Dresden Jews began here, with only 41 out of several thousand Jews surviving the Holocaust in Dresden. There is a vivid debate at the moment on how to respectfully remember this part of Saxon history, maybe in a future Jewish history museum here in Dresden. The horrors of these times are recorded in the famous diaries of Victor Klemperer, whose writings still are an important voice in Dresden. The again vivid culture of Jewish life today is most prominently displayed through the remarkable shape of the new synagogue by the Karola Bridge. This is right next to the place where the old synagogue, which had been erected in the late 1830s, was burned down in the pogrom night of the 9th to the 10th of November in 1938. The synagogue Star of David was saved by one firefighter and given back to the Jewish community in 1949. You can see it in the entrance of the new synagogue. The times of National Socialism and Fascism did not leave the university untouched though, which is why TU Dresden decided to establish a graduate school starting in 2023 and enabling a deeper and more critical research of its own history. Still today, some university buildings reveal parts of this history, and a visit to the Memorial Center Münchner Platz on campus is therefore recommended. Getting back downtown, if you would decide to take a walk from the new synagogue across Prull's Terrace, which in a somewhat unassuming manner is also called the Balcony of Europe, you would not only be able to explore the links between the city and the former court of the electors and later kings of Saxony, but also the roots of today's academic culture, an important part of the history of Saxon democracy. You would miss that if you would only focus on the Baroque and classic architecture inspired by Italian culture, giving Dresden also the name of Florence by the Elbe River. Right in the middle of Prull's Terrace, nearby the Ritual Monument, waits the inconspicuous founding place of our university to be explored by you. It all started with the Garden Pavilion in 1814, hosting a school for technical drawing, which was combined with a newly founded Technical Educational Institute, opened in 1828, out of which by the time today's Technical University Dresden emerged. The Garden Pavilion was one of the remnants of the so-called Brühl's glories, personal property of the Saxon Chancellor Heinrich Graf von Brühl. It was his enmity with the Prussian King Frederick II that motivated the latter to order a disastrous bombardment of the city during the 7 Years' War in July 1760, which destroyed large parts of the old town. The reconstructed shape of the old market squares and their surrounding buildings give you an impression of the myth of the old Dresden that was rebuilt after 1760, destroyed again in 1945, and rebuilt for a second time after 1990. Dresden's oldest building, however, the Hunters Court, is situated on the right bank. You need to deviate from the usual touristic path a bit to actually see it. It hosts a museum of Saxon folk art today. Moreover, the left bank of the Elbe River is shaped by the buildings of the castle, hosting the impressive and worldwide renowned electoral arts collections, but even more so by several parliament buildings. Firstly, the second Saxon parliament, built in 1907, the so-called Wallertbau, named after Johann Paul Wallert, who was also the subversive and nonconformist architect of the better-known Reichstag building in Berlin. If you have the time, I would highly recommend to take a look at this building, which is symbolically embedded in a specific setting towards the castle and the Catholic court church, giving the parliament its rightful central place in Saxon society. As a matter of fact, this might not be that obvious at first glance, but frankly speaking, one could deem it more important than the row of Saxon rulers on the fresco of the Procession of Princes, one of the most touristic spaces in Dresden. Secondly, there is today's parliament, with its impressive glass facade, symbolizing the openness and the connection between the parliament and the people it represents. More witnesses of Saxony's parliamentary history can be seen in the City Museum, which basically is the building for the old Saxon estates, as well as in the Dreikönigskirche in the new town, which hosted the first freely elected Saxon parliament after the German reunification in 1990. There is quite a lot more to explore while you stay in Dresden. For instance, you might follow the traces of the following questions. Who rebuilt the destroyed Semper Opera House? Is the grand building on the left bank of the Elbe River with the shape of a huge mosque really a temple of prayer? How long does it take by tram to explore all the different parts of the city? Is it possible to visit all the more than 50 museums during one stay? How many research facilities create the network of Dresden concept, and where can they be found? Is Saxon wine worth tasting? Which local cake should you try first? Is there an app which helps to explore TU Dresden's campus from a historical perspective, using files from the former GDR Ministry of State Security? I promise there will be some surprises for you. Thus, like in a nutshell, Dresden's history reveals how urban, academic, and democratic life has rethought and renewed itself more than once over the past centuries. Destroyed several times, rebuilt several times, becoming stronger after every devastating experience, the city today is one of the economic beacons in Eastern Germany. This is also due to the fact that TU Dresden is not only a purely technical university and a closed ivory tower. On the contrary, you cannot imagine Dresden without the university and the university without the city. As a full university which integrates formal and natural sciences, engineering, life sciences, social sciences and humanities, TU Dresden contributes essentially to the city's life as it lives from the many advantages that the city provides for the university. It's time for you to explore the city. A very warm welcome to Dresden to all of you.
Next up, we have Kirsten Vincenz, Director of the Office for Academic Heritage, Scientific and Art Collections of TU Dresden. Together with her team, she's responsible for the extensive university collections, academic heritage, and exhibition projects. They are one of the 3 largest offices of this kind in Germany, and the only one in a technical university. She's here today to guide us through the discovery of the university collections at TUD.
The extensive natural science and engineering collections and the scientific art holdings of TU Dresden document almost 200 years of history of knowledge transfer and generation and are important testimonies to our university identity. As home to 40 collections of technical and scientific objects and to artworks it owns, Dresden University of Technology boasts a large and significant stock of historical and contemporary artifacts from teaching, research, and art. Objects in university collections differ from those in museums as a consequence of the specific nature of the origin, since they do not represent a past epoch that has now been concluded, but are, as it were, in flux. They can undergo noticeable changes in meaning, either rapidly or gradually, changing their status within the university as the decades pass. Collections of scientific devices or models, such as those that have been created preliminary at technical universities, usually were, and continue to be, purchased or produced for teaching or specific research purposes. These objects are utilized, used up, sometimes exchanged or renewed over the course of decades. They change during and due to the passage of time. In this way, they develop into a meaningful part of the academic tradition of the individual subjects, as well as of the history of the respective university as a whole. Their potential significance both for future research in the history of science and for the indispensable self-reflection of disciplines can, however, scarcely be overestimated. At the same time, scientific collections of objects from the past can provide surprising answers to pressing questions of current research, such as those regarding climate change, evolutionary theory, or biodiversity. New analytical methods can be employed to examine objects such as historical herbaria, drill cores, or seafloor sediments, allowing us to read the information that they have stored for many decades or even millennia. Thanks to DNA sequencing methods, genetic changes in plants can now be reconstructed from historic 19th century herbarium specimens, and old experimental apparatus for speech synthesis inspire new approaches to generating computer voices. As a starting point for transdisciplinary and international as well as local cooperation between the engineering and natural sciences and the humanities, the diverse collections are of outstanding value and importance.
But what is the role of the Office for Academic Heritage?
The Office for Academic Heritage plays a central role in the preservation and integration of the collections into research and exhibition projects. The core tasks of the Office for Academic Heritage can be divided into three main areas: preservation and use of the university collections, documentation and reflection regarding topics concerning the university and the history of its collections, as well as maintaining the artwork and organizing exhibitions. In addition to the existing forms of presentation, there is a need for a place that highlights our own history even more strongly at the heart of the campus, and at the same time makes a transdisciplinary exhibition and research project between art and science visible as resources for exchange and transfer. A new space for exhibition and object-based learning is planned for the 200-year anniversary in 2028. There is a close exchange of expertise with the TU Dresden and the history of engineering sciences, as well as with the disciplines of history of art, cultural sociology, and philosophy of technology. Moreover, there's a wide range of collaborations with the HFBK Dresden, the Art Institute, the State Art Collections, the Festspielhaus Hellerau, and other smaller off-spaces in Dresden. That includes joint exhibition projects on objects, culture, and those that are part of the Schaufler Lab at TU Dresden. The lab is a joint project of the Schaufler Foundation and the TU Dresden and consists of a graduate academy for the humanities and social sciences and an artist in residence program hosted by our office. The Schaufler Lab works on the important topics of our time regarding new technologies such as artificial intelligence and digitization. The international artists are invited to work for 6 months at the TU Dresden and engage with the scientific staff and the local art community. It's a lighthouse project of the TU Dresden and unique in its kind. The Office for Academic Heritage is part of the university's internationalization strategy and strives to expand and deepen its collaboration with and presence in international networks through concrete projects of the history of collections and of science. As the next major project, we're hosting the first joint collections conference involving the two international networks, Universeum, European Academic Heritage Network, and ICOM-UMAC, the International Council of Museums Committee for University Museums and Collection.
Thank you for joining us today in Dresden. See you in the next city.